I've made up my mind over and over. Keep pressing rewind, but I'm getting older. Tried every door, don't know who I'm looking for. And I've made up my mind over and over. I can't be everything you want me to be. I can't be everything you want me to be. Finally, I can see the light through the leaves, but it's all gone. But it's all gone. What comes from the ground now is returning. It's all the same sound, and my ears are burning. In some strange home, don't know who I'm working for. I've made up my mind over and over. I can't be everything you want me.
Oh,
Oh my goodness, what's going on? Hi, Rick.
hello. Yes, I didn't want to shock you.
What's happening? Are you in quarantine? Oh my God,
Yes,
is that you?
I,
What happened?
yeah. What happened? A couple of my grandkids got a hold of me. You know,
Wow.
this is so strange, right?
Yeah.
You know, so even I sometimes look in the mirror and go like, who is this guy, right? Um,
Do you want
so
to tell us how exactly they got a hold of you?
yeah, no kidding, eh? So well, it's every year I've been actively campaigning for what's called Movember, and it's about men's health issues, and it's very dear to me because you know, mental health is I got a big passion for that, and also I'm a prostate cancer survivor. My dad's got prostate cancer, but he's, you know, like he's still 91 and he's still, you know, active and all that other kind of stuff. And this year I've had a couple of really close colleagues commit suicide. So it's I figured it's time to kind of step it up. But I don't want to go down a dark hole or anything because I want to keep this kind of light. But anyways, like here we are.
I still don't know what happened to your beard.
Well, okay. I wanted something. I'm always looking for something different to do, and I had this idea of grabbing my year-and-a-half-old granddaughter Bryn and my 3-year-old grandson Liam, and get them to shave my beard. Because one of the things that is, yeah, I know, brave guy I am, right?
A lot of trust there.
Yes, a total huge trust. But you know, I had this vision of, because one of the things that happened to me when I had originally had done this a number of years ago was that my grandkids at that time, they were obviously they get older every year for some reason, but they didn't recognize me. Like, and they actually got scared when they saw me. They could see the voice, they could understand the voice, but they couldn't associate the face. So I thought, okay, what better way? Because these are the youngest ones. The older ones are quite a bit older. Get them to do it, and then they can see the transformation, and they could adjust accordingly, kind of a thing.
So what was the reaction? So you got them to do it, and
Yeah.
how are they reacting to it now?
Well, normal, like just normal, right? Like, it's like, oh, okay, grandpa, it's like, and I think maybe Halloween helped because everybody else put a costume on. I just took mine off, right?
Good timing, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. So, yeah, no, it worked out really good. I videoed it. I put it up on my Facebook page as part of the launch for my campaign. And yeah, no, it does feel weird. I mean, it's the whole idea is you have to start clean shaven, and then you don't shave for the month and just kind of see what happens, right? So, um, yeah, and I'm a slow grower, like.
So I guess the question is like, was this weirder for them or for you?
Was it for me personally? Was it well? I mean, a little
Adjusting
bit
to
of,
the way you look, I mean, right?
yeah.
Adjusting to your new look.
You have to ask me that question one more time. Sorry.
So I was wondering, it
Yeah.
sounds like your grandchildren got used to it right away. They got
Yes,
to do the
absolutely.
deed and they got used to it right away.
Yeah.
But I heard you say, well, I'm just still kind of getting used to it. Every now and then I look at myself in the mirror. So wonder, was this weirder for them or for you?
Oh no, weirder for me. Weirder for me. I mean, like I don't like as you know. I mean, we've been meeting since I think it was January of this year we started, and I'm very very open on what my thoughts are. How I process things and things like that. Um, and there was a lot of overthinking, or there's a lot of extra thinking, I would say, about this kind of thing, right? Because I mean, we all have insecure thoughts, like they pop up every once in a while, right? Even trying to produce and put this little show together, right? There's some insecure thinking, like, will anybody show up? Will anybody care? Will kind of a thing, right? And and nobody really does, and it's like, and I get good comments, kind of a thing, but I look at myself. So, okay, I'm bouncing all over the place here. The first time I ever experienced or came across personal development material was a book that my mother-in-law gave me, that she had in her library, which really kind of surprised me. Was a book called Cybernetics by Maxwell something or other. Um, and it was about his study that he noticed with um, cosmetic surgery, how
Mm.
people thought that with cosmetic surgery they could do better in the world. And he noticed that after the surgery, there was an initial sort of like, oh, thank goodness I finally got a smaller nose, or whatever they were working on, right? Um, but they slowly fell back into their insecure thinking, regardless of the change in the appearance. And that struck me, and that this was many years ago. But that always stuck with me about how outside experiences or things outside of us have really no real effect in here, in the sense of, okay, I'm going to grow my beard back and therefore I'm going to get more manly, right? It has nothing to do with the beard. It has everything to do with my thinking. So yeah, it comes up, and I had some thinking about, okay, well, I'm losing my beard, I'm losing my identity. it's like it's
Yeah.
like it's something like, when I lost my prostate, it was sort of like, okay, there's a chunk of me that's gone missing. um but it has nothing to do with me going forward. It has nothing to with me having a good life, right? It's just a beard, and it's just, I don't know. Actually, I'm having much more fun out of it. So I don't want to make it all about me.
Well, like I want to say something to what you just said. I mean, that's a very interesting study. While I feel that your outer appearance or like feeling comfortable with your body can really change the way you perceive yourself and the way you feel with yourself. It's not the end of the work, right? That
Yeah.
alone is not going to take you anywhere. But if you pair that with the inner work, then now you're going somewhere, right? There's nothing wrong with wanting to appear in a certain way and creating an identity around that, right? And keeping the flexibility that perhaps that identity at some point becomes old and needs to be shed, right? And that's not the end of the work. We're multi-layered beings. It's not
Mhm.
just about our bodies, it's not just about our mind, it's not just about the spiritual thinking or being, right? It's about all of it,
Yeah,
right?
the whole package, the whole package. Yeah,
The whole
absolutely.
package, all
Yeah,
the layers.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I kind of like what you said, about the, it is, for me, it's a bit of that attachment to, whatever you want to call it, the left brain thinking or ego thinking, that has some meaning to it. And really, the only meaning that it has is what I put on it. And for me, that's what you're pointing towards, is that inner work, right? There's nothing wrong with anybody growing a beard for the sake of growing a beard. But what I get hooked on is, if I think growing that beard is somehow going to make me more happier,
Or give you confidence, right?
give me
It
confidence.
temporarily may, yeah, it
Well,
temporarily may.
I've got that confidence, or I got a sense of that confidence when I put a uniform on as a paramedic.
Mm, interesting.
Yeah, and it was sort of like, that was kind of the switch that I felt,
Mhm.
and I kind of labeled it as the Superman complex. you know, putting
Mm.
on a unit, like all superheroes tend to have uniforms. So I I did, get that feeling of something is different, like you said, like, like there's something different that's going on. What I didn't realize at the time, it had nothing really to do with the uniform. It was really what was going on inside, that was allowing that experience, kind of a thing. So yeah, no, I mean, it's a fascinating subject, isn't it?
Well, I mean, we're so like the other thing that comes up for me is that any change that you're going to implement in your life, any improvement, any step throughout your evolution, right, at some point becomes your normal,
Yeah,
right? And it's the same thing when you grow a beard or you get more fit or gain weight or whatever it is, right? Then now at that point, that becomes your starting point, right? And that's where, speaking to what you were talking about, like just feeling like, well, that didn't quite do it, right? You may have done something,
yeah,
but it has now become your normal. And
yeah,
now perhaps you're ready for your next level of evolution,
yeah,
the next step forward.
yeah, yeah,
And so,
yeah.
it
we're
never, because the
we're
work
always
never
evolving.
ends. Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Oh
work
no,
never
no, we're
ends.
always evolving. And I think the exciting part is sort of letting go of what that might look like, because we have no idea. So I'm excited about inviting that opportunity to see where this will all evolve. Much like our program. And I think maybe for our audience, whoever that might eventually be, or whatever, the um, this is our first show together, even though we've been talking and having conversations for several months,
It's actually been a year. We met
a
in
year.
November. Yeah.
It did start in November, eh? Oh, wow. Well, you have a much better memory than I have, or a better calendar than I have.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
Yeah,
November or December.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And I I know we've often had so many synchronicities type of uh,
You
thought.
mean synchronicities?
Yeah, that one. Yeah, as you know, I butcher the language pretty good, and that's why it's like it's even funny. Like I remember we were talking about I have a hard time saying your name.
I know. I know you do. And I pondered for a while if I should point it out.
Yeah, yeah,
And then I did, right? And we came up with a trick too so that you
yeah,
could remember.
yeah, yeah.
Do you remember how to pronounce my name?
You're putting me on the spot.
I do.
Fati.
You got it.
I
See?
got it. Oh yeah.
It's just one mental association away, right?
Well, again, it's that insecure thinking that gets in the way, right? It's sort of like, okay, I don't want to screw this up, I don't want her to think less of me, all that crap, right? And Adina wants me to hear it. Well, I said it. Fati. Fati.
Fatigue.
Fati.
Fatigue.
Yeah. Um, and now I could say it over and over again because I sort of let go of that, right? But I can actually remember so many conversations, particularly when we had other people join us, that I would do everything as a workaround so I didn't have to say your name.
Oh wow! I had no
Isn't that
idea.
amazing? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, but we do that as
Wow.
humans, right? We're insecure about something, and then
Mm.
we form a belief around that insecurity, and then we create these workarounds so that people don't find out about us, about finding out those things. You know what? Hey, and you know, we all have them. Let's face it, right? We all have them, right? So
And you're so busy with the workaround, avoiding that you can't be present.
I can't be present, right? Like, what did you
Yeah,
say?
you're busy figuring out how to
Yeah,
avoid,
yeah,
right? And that's
yeah.
so true on so many levels, right? Especially in
Unbelievable.
coaching.
Yeah,
That's one of the most common coping mechanisms that people have.
yeah. And so last week, we were together having our normal chat, if you want to call it normal, but
We're masterminding.
yes, we were masterminding the extraordinary conversation. The And that's a play on words I really like, the extraordinary, right? Like we don't have to be anything more than ordinary, right? We just need to be ourselves more often, right? And I think that's what we do quite naturally. Um, but you had said something last week about something to the effect, you know this better, about we should be recording these.
Oh yeah, I've been saying this for a while.
Oh, have you? See, I haven't been listening.
Yeah, I know you were too busy trying not to say my name.
Yeah, that's probably true. Probably true. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I was kind of thinking of doing something different for November, and I did hear that. I heard you say, right, we should be recording. I go, why not? Why not? Why not? Actually, and then of course, one idea. You know how one idea leads to another. Um, we ran with it, and in a very short period of time, here we are live. We're doing a live conversation. It's like,
Yeah.
with all the technical issues that people don't have no idea what we went
No
through,
idea. And we're here.
and yet we're here, right?
Yeah.
And I was on a coaching call a couple hours before this, and somebody had brought up this whole notion of having ideas to do things,
Mm.
and then again, insecure thinking, thoughts come in about, well, I don't know if I do this, will anybody really, kind of all that kind of stuff, right? And it pulls away. I call it contaminated thinking, right? So I kind of hold up a screen like this, and I go, things don't become clear at that point. And but for us, it just, well, for me anyways, and I can only speak for myself, it felt very natural to move in this direction. It became very clear to me that this was the evolution. This was the next step. Regardless of what my personal thinking was going on about it, it was just nice, and things just fell into place. Including all what the universe was trying to tell us, or what we thought they were trying to tell us. Yeah, so I don't know if you felt that same way, but I think this is a very natural.
Yeah, I mean, I felt that we had so many powerful conversations, and this is not to just sit here and like praise ourselves, even though praising yourself is actually a really good thing to do for yourself, for your own like self-care. It's not about that. It's about what comes out of these conversations. And so many really powerful insights came out of just brainstorming, and not just brainstorming, sharing the tough moments of day-to-day life, right? That we've both encountered at times, and how we're able to just really see a different perspective and a different side of it, or uh, even sit with it and let it be and accept the fact that it was going to be a hard time in that moment and that it was going to pass, and have someone there to share that with and witness, in a sense, how we have both like overcome those moments.
Yeah.
And because it's not, I think as coaches, it's not about being perfect. It's about being truthful about the fact that life does get hard for you, even though you know what's going on, even though what we do is help others overcome their challenges. That doesn't mean that challenges don't enter our lives. They do.
No.
We just have a level of awareness and some couple tools up our sleeves that we often can use, and sometimes we need that person that holds the mirror in a different angle and tells you, you know what, you're in that space you're not noticing. Here, why don't you look at it this way? And we need that reminder too as coaches. And I strongly believe that as a coach, the most powerful thing you can do is to keep getting coached, to keep looking at yourself, to keep working on yourself. And that's not just for coaches, for anyone.
Yeah, I mean, we're all works in progress, right? And I
Always.
think I know personally, we all want to do better. Like, I don't know anybody in this world, anybody that I've ever coached wants not to do better. Like, they feel that there's something missing. They feel that they feel struggle, in the sense that they're asking the questions, why aren't I doing better? Like, I have all this particular knowledge. We have a gazillion books out there, and gazillion is a real number, by the way, of self-help books out there, right? So like there's resource material, there's YouTube, there's all sorts of different stuff out there, and yet people are still suffering, people are still struggling. And I know a lot of times when you are caught in the circumstances, and I've been there, been broke, and all sorts of different other things that in my life, that it's really, really hard to see anything different than what you see in front of you. Like, you think that is your world, and that kind of, and that, not that I wanted to do that segue, but I kind of hinted to the fact that I wanted to talk about, at least point to anyway, suicide. As having had some experience, not obviously not in suicide, but the having colleagues and being involved in different men's groups and other groups where, particularly in the first responders world, there seems to be a higher number of individuals committing suicide, coming from my understanding, coming from a place of no hope. Like, like they're stuck in the circumstances and caught up in their insecure thinking, and like it just feels like what more? I've done everything I've done. People have done everything they could for me. I'm still broken. I'm still hurting. I'm still struggling. Why even continue? Right? And so my message for the last number of years is to point out to the fact that regardless of what's going on in front of you, regardless, you're not broken, that you actually work quite well. And the fact that you're still here today is a testament to the resilience you have inside of you, right? Because there's no way you would have survived any of that given all the shit you went through, right? So I mean, like, that alone should tell you something, but unfortunately it doesn't. It just tells you I have a shitty life. It's like,
Well, I think, suicide to me is the ultimate expression of stuckness and helplessness, right?
mm-hmm.
It's where we just really don't see a way out. Obviously, I'm here and I haven't, experienced that personally, but it, in a sense, is the expression of what we all struggle with on a
Yeah,
much, much, much smaller scale, right? Getting
yeah,
stuck in a thinking loop of not seeing a way out, of not being able to see it any differently than we see it in that moment
yeah,
from the inside out, right? We're
yeah,
stuck inside ourselves within the same story that we keep telling ourselves, within the same point of view that we can see, right?
yeah. The loop, yeah,
And it's really, I mean, it's something that we all experience, right?
yeah. Oh, 100%.
Depressed or not depressed, or even when we get angry, or like in everyday life, there's many different manifestations of this thinking loop. It happens to us all the time, right?
Everybody, that's the important part, right?
Everybody,
Yeah, everybody.
everybody.
Yeah,
And I think what's really key here, which is a little bit going back to why we both feel so strongly about coaching, is not feeling alone in it and having that person that's going to hold the mirror in that slightly different angle to show you, look, there is a slightly different way of looking at this, or look, here's the rest of the view. Why don't you look out of this window for a minute,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
and and so I believe that what is really, really, really needed to help people is support, having
yeah,
that someone that supports them, having that network that is around them, having a place to go to and share all this stuff, having a place to express this outside of themselves, right? Because we do, I think inner work is crucial and really, really important, but sometimes we tend to get stuck within ourselves. And when we
mm-hmm.
get stuck within ourselves, all we can see is what we can see from that view, from the inside
Absolutely,
out.
absolutely. And that's what becomes that view, right?
Yeah.
It becomes so clouded and distorted, and we buy into that. And I think what you're pointing to, what I like is, and this is from Carl Jung too, in Carl Jung's work, who some people say has kind of been the father of psychology, um, uh, is that others will see something that you can't. They will see more of you than you will ever see. And we've all experienced this, right? Where we've had, we buy it off as, oh, they're just being friends or whatever. But everybody has always said, it's like, Rick, you're underestimating yourself. You're this kind of stuff, right? Like we've had this positive feedback. But what if that positive feedback was actually true, right? Instead of our kind of dismissing it, kind of a thing, right? Um, what if it actually was true, right? And we need others to mirror that back. And so it's yeah, no, it is fascinating, and that's what we do. Like, but when we notice we're stuck, that's the key, right? You kind of notice you're stuck, right? Like, I don't know about you, but I have a very difficult time um uh, sort of getting into, like, like if somebody's really, really stuck, I have to get them quieter in a
Of
place.
course,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah,
Yes, that's a
because they
first
can't
step,
see anything.
right?
Doesn't matter what I say to them, right?
It, it's like it's like the concept of duality that we're talking about. I think it was last week. We live this duality, right? We
Yeah,
live in our ego. We get caught up in our ego and ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we buy the idea that we can just know it all and figure it all out from the inside out, when the truth is that we inherently, I believe, are one. And so we need everyone around us, in a sense, to complete us, right? So the view from the inside out is amazing, and it's your own inner personal experience. But to have that reflected back gives you that different set of glasses that you don't possess, right?
Oh, 100%. 100%. And you know, and that our uniqueness, like we're all expressions of sort of that same context, whatever you want to call it, right? That the universe, the you know, the universal energy that has that intelligence to make molecules into lungs and turn food into waste material and and other things, parts of your body, make hair grow faster. Um, but you see, like, and this is what I love about coaching conversations is I I have only one point of view, my my unique point of view. My eyes are always pointing forward, right? So I can only see here. Through coaching, I have an opportunity to see from other people's ideas. You know, forget even coaching, like having a normal conversation with somebody where you remove the judgment or trying to be right and but stay curious. Like, tell me how do you see the world? Like, how do you actually see it? Because like even we can't even agree on the hue of blue, you know, kind of a thing. It's like it's not blue, it's purple. No, I don't see it as right, you know, kind of a thing, right? You know, so we I just want to take like we have a chance. Anybody that wants to interact can post something into the chat, ask us any questions or make a comment and at any time, and we will see that. So, but yeah, no, what an opportunity for me. It's always been a really unique opportunity to see other points of view, see how what I see looks so much different than somebody else. Who's right? We're both right.
I mean, it's also how you perceive things, right? And your perception is greatly affected by your life
Well,
experiences,
totally, but
right?
it's
Your
unique to me.
emotion, it's
Yeah,
unique to you,
yeah.
100%. So imagine how many different realities there are.
I think is it 8.7 now or something billion?
And all those that are gone, right?
Yeah, right. You know, and yeah, uh, we. I think intuitively we kind of know that. Intuitively we know that, and I think for me, particularly around the subject of suicide, when I see somebody in a very depressed, like deeply depressed, like I'm not a psychologist, psychiatrist, doctor, any of that kind of stuff. Like, and I don't even want to pretend because that's way above my pay grade. But I know it. I know enough to know when I'm out of my league. But it hurts me to see that, knowing that that it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to end that way. I've seen enough evidence to support that when somebody gets early help, right? Like when they start to recognize that, wait a minute, I've got to stop trying to fix it myself,
Mm-hmm.
because because when you're trying to fix it yourself, the best you can ever do, don't hit yourself with your light there. I can't help you. You're in New York. I'm on the West Coast, right? Uh, the when you're trying to fix yourself, the best that you can do is work with what you know, and what you know is all that shit that you've accumulated over the number of years, right? We get out of that when we get an insight, which is something that's fresh and new, something that is brought in right from who knows where. But I mean, we get a fresh look, like you say, like a fresh perspective that goes, wait a minute, no, it doesn't have to be that way, you know. And like I tell people that they're not broken because they've heard so often from others, never mind their doctors and other people, but even from family, friends, and relatives, that they're broken and you need to be fixed and you need to be this. And then when they get the idea or understanding that, well, maybe I'm not broken, I just buying into that fact that I do have resilience within me, they can see a bit of a shift happening, a bit of an understanding and insight, right? But I can't just go, they have to see it for themselves. Like it's through experience, right? Because if all I had to do was say something or get them to read something, I think people would be doing a whole lot better, because we got like I said, a gazillion papers and information out there to help people, and all in good faith. I mean, I've been inspired by a lot of reading. Like I said, my first book was that um, cyber cybernetics. It was written, I think, in the late 50s, kind of a thing. That sparked an interest, right? So you get, I'm not saying there's nothing, I don't want to, diss any authors out there, because I still do a lot of reading, right? As you do too, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
But
but
I love the concept, and that's what I always tell my clients too. It's not about being broken, and it's not about what you did wrong.
mhm,
It's about seeing the path that was laid before you, seeing that that was the path for you to get to here today, and be able to look at it the way you do, because it has shaped you. Even what hurt you shaped you.
oh, absolutely, it's been all part of it.
What hurt you is perhaps the motivation where you want to look at yourself,
Yeah.
right? And I know, and I know that you don't have to always necessarily go down that path. That was my path, right? It can definitely be a very strong motivator, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
To just change when you feel really, really hurt and you're having a really, really tough time. You're deep down in the hole.
Yeah.
There's nowhere else to go but
Hmm.
up, right? So
Yeah.
that can be a strong motivator. Not that I'm sitting here recommending it.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not. But that's 9 times out of 10 how people tend to start searching for change and like
And,
desiring a
yeah.
different way.
and and I know we've touched on this before in the past, but you're absolutely correct. There's that level that, the hitting the bottom. We even have a phrase for it, right? I hit my
Mhm.
bottom. I've
Mhm.
hit my limit. Um, and what's interesting though is it's very subjective, right? Because,
Mhm. Yep.
right, your bottom and my bottom are two different things. So like when you say, you know, and this is where understanding that we're all experiencing life differently, right? And I love my training as a paramedic, because I was trained to be more curious about subjective things. Like pain is subjective. And we used
Mhm.
to say, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the worst pain you've ever felt, where does it lie, right? And and sometimes it's hard to swallow that, some guy's got a sliver in his thumb, and he says it's an 8 out of 10, right?
Yeah.
Right. But or you say that to your kids, right? And it's like, well, that is the worst pain they've ever felt.
Or you just tell them, "No, it doesn't hurt."
Yeah, 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 uh,
What are you talking? That's okay, right?
yeah,
The worst
yeah,
thing you
yeah,
could tell them.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Suck it up, right? But that is so interesting to to know that everything is subjective. So when you hit your bottom, it's your bottom, right? There is no reward for having the deepest bottom. Okay, like you just instantly or intuitively know that, what, I'm hitting my limit. I'm hitting my limit. And it just seems that when you kind of surrender to that, your personal thinking kind of just drops out of the way a little bit, enough for you to separate enough to sort of say, okay, I need help. That's wisdom. That's wisdom calling out to you saying, I need help. Take the next step. Wherever that might be. It might be,
Yeah.
phone a helpline, phone your doctor, whatever, like take the next step, or even go to your spouse, whatever it is. Right. So, yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's I think this is a really good point, right? Like we all have different level of resilience
Yeah.
and a different level of shit tolerance,
Yeah.
right? And when you do hit that bottom, often in my experience, it was because the rehearsing that was happening in my head had gone on for way so too long, and I just couldn't hear myself anymore,
Yeah.
right? And I just couldn't tolerate seeing that there was no other way out of that thinking loop. We're going back to that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And just really being able to say enough is enough, right? I want out of this. What is it going to take? Is it going to be about looking at myself? Okay, bring it on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to be about just screaming out loud, and that I do this on my chair, on my empty chair? Then I'm going to do that. Can I just call my mom and unload there and get a little different perspective, right? Because often it's also about just admitting to yourself that you need that help. Asking
Yeah.
for help is one of the hardest things for
Yeah.
most human beings.
What, what do you think about that? Like,
I think it's conditioning. All of it
yeah.
is conditioning, right?
Yeah,
We're
totally.
conditioned to
Yeah.
think that you have to be tough on your own and
Well,
figure it out,
especially
right?
guys. I know there are a lot of strong women. I raised 4 very strong daughters, and their mother is very, very strong. Um, but there's a lot of, and I don't want to put the high. I mean, it's Movember. I'm supposed to highlight men's health issues, but there's a lot of cultural things. Like my dad does not like to cry.
Mm-hmm.
Like he will show that as a sign of weakness, and he will tell like I'm embarrassed, like I need to stop crying, and I go, Dad, like allow the emotion. Like we've got to be okay with emotion. Like emotions are good. They're indicators of the kind of thinking that we have, right? So to not allow them is basically saying to yourself, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to be sad. What gives you the right to be sad?
But it's a little bit like when your kid gets hurt and you're like, that doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
okay, right?
Yeah.
The conditioning starts right there with a very innocent comment,
Yeah.
because maybe you're like caught up into your own stuff and you
Yeah.
can't deal with your kid crying again. And I've done it. I'm
Yeah.
number one here,
Yeah.
like I've done this. I
Me too.
admit it, guilty, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what that does, it sends a message to your child that, you know what, it's not okay to cry when you get hurt, and that
Yeah.
your pain is not real,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not worth expressing. And it's
I-
such an innocent thing, right?
yeah.
Because conditioning, I think sometimes conditioning has a negative connotation, as if someone purposely conditioned us
No,
to
we
be in a
innocently
certain
did it.
way, right? A
Innocently.
lot
Yeah.
of it is innocent. A lot of it is passed down generationally, right? Or
Yeah.
traditionally, right?
Yeah.
From our cultures.
Yeah.
And we do it. And it's the same as when we do something wrong in our parenting, or to a friend, or to our spouse, right? We don't mean, I don't intentionally hurt people when I do,
No.
right? We mean the best, but we may not be doing the
Yeah.
best thing for them in that moment, right? And that goes back to this concept of everyone is exactly where they can be in that moment, and they're doing
Yeah.
the best that they can with the
Absolutely.
knowledge they have in that moment. It's such a cliche statement in the coaching world, but that's what it means, right? It's not like anyone meant to. They don't
No.
know any better.
Well, and and it's unfortunate that we, we're obviously, as coaches, we're trying to spread that outwards, like to get people to understand. Like I often tell my kids who, or anybody that, when they get caught up into the should haves and the would haves and the could haves,
Mm-hmm.
right, is that, look, at that moment of time, you were acting according to the level of your thinking, right? To the level of your understanding in that moment. You were doing what you felt was right at that moment. Like there's nothing more about that. Yeah, it's really great going back and go, you know what? I should have turned left instead of right. If I had turned left, this would not have happened. How do you know? How do you
You
really,
don't
really?
know.
You
Yeah.
don't know, right?
Yeah.
You don't really know. So I mean, yeah, I mean, just that
And
alone.
it's not a bypass, and it's not like justifying people's act or
Oh,
condoning
oh,
people's actions,
no,
right? It's not condoning. It's just
no,
understanding that the resentment and the anger around it, and the rehearsing what else could have been done, what else should have been done, it's just a waste of your mental energy, of
yeah,
your emotional energy, of your time,
yeah,
frankly, right?
yeah.
Because when you're busy doing that, you can't really pay attention to your kid that just got hurt and just needs to hear, oh, that must be really painful. I'm sorry. Do you want a band-aid? Right?
Yeah.
Because you're rehearsing, we're constantly rehearsing this kind of thinking, right? Constantly.
Well, and you point out to the fact like there's only really one moment of time to be in, and that's right now, right? Like be here presently, like like, and it's I know it's in my particular workshops. I ask people, do you understand what listening is, right? And people have intuitively understanding that you know listening, yes, I'm listening to learn, right? I'm listening to learn something, right? Or I'm listening to compare current knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
right? So all I'm doing while I'm, and I encourage people, as they keep joining us in these conversations, is listen for the feeling that's coming from our expressions, not necessarily the words that we're saying, because when we're only concentrating on the words, we're going into our habitual thinking, going, oh yeah, I've heard that before. Oh yeah, right, right,
Mm-hmm.
right. That's what I did that in that program over there. I remember that. Or we're doing it to judge, right? you know I love how Adina is so interactive with us here. And you're right, Adina. You're right. We
So
listen to
true. Yeah.
respond, right? It's like, oh, wait a minute. I can't wait to say something. I can't wait to say something,
To
right?
get a word in,
Oh,
to
hey.
show that we know. I've
Hey,
been there, I did it too, right?
yo, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so true. So true.
And this is what I love about our conversations is, and I put this as part of our tagline, and what if it stays or doesn't stay, I don't know, but really what we do is unscripted.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of like, we talked a bit about, like, yeah, we want to point out about suicide, and like in the fact that 60 men commit suicide every hour, like one a minute. So by the time this broadcast is over, um 60 men will have decided that there's no more hope, there's no more future, and that's it. And so, life is very organic when we get out of our own personal thinking, get out of our own personal way, where we can actually have kind of a conversation here where it's not who's right, who knows more, who that kind of thing, where we just kind of flow organically in a particular direction, and how cool would that be if all our conversations were like that, instead of you're wrong, I'm right. you know I have this little sign up here saying, I'm not arguing with you, I'm just pointing out why I'm right.
And you know what? Going back to suicide, I
Yeah.
strongly believe that one good listener could change the outcome of that
Oh,
decision, right?
yeah.
One person that knows how to listen. So if we really had to pick one skill that everyone should develop, and I'm going to say should, is
Hmm.
listening.
Yeah.
Listening deeply without phrasing in your head that your next question, next comment you're going to make, or what you think about it, but really listening, and like you were pointing to, really connecting with the feelings of that person. How must have how it must have felt for that person to go through that. Where can I relate to those feelings?
Yeah.
How hard it must have been for that person, like really, really deeply listening to what someone is telling you, which
Yeah.
often is not really the words that they're using. It's all of it, right?
All of
It's
it.
the body language, it's the tone, it's the intensity in their, in their eyes. And, like, and the more you connect and the more the person opens up, that deeper conversation around whatever it is that they're sharing. And so if I had to say what can be done to help, like, I don't know, change this suicide rate would be, let's all learn to listen. Let's all
100%.
to learn to deeply, deeply listen to what the person is going through without diminishing it, without belittling it, without making it okay for them, without trying to fix it. Just listen. Because oftentimes in coaching sessions as well, half the work is the person hearing themselves out loud.
Yeah.
And oftentimes that's all someone needs to express that to
Yeah.
another human being.
Yeah.
And for the other human being to just stay connected in that way.
Yeah. Absolutely. I you kind of spark some memories around, like I used to be in Toastmasters, and and seeing the transformation of people when they get into the program where they have a fear of public speaking and they're really timid and various other things, and what you're pointing to for me is the ability to have my voice heard, to really be heard. Because in that program, and I highly recommend it to anybody, is that you know you get evaluated in a whole different way than you do in your work and in school. Like in school and at work, you get graded, right? It's like, oh,
Mhm.
you could have done this, but that kind of stuff, right? But an evaluation from somebody that actually really hears you goes more like, when you spoke, something touched me here. Not here, not my intellect, right? Something touched me here. And and to have that understanding, because it's much like that movie The Wonderful Life, with Jimmy Stewart, kind of a thing. He wants to commit suicide, so he jumps off a bridge and gets saved by Clarence. You
Mhm.
haven't watched that movie? It's called It's a Wonderful Life. So here's your homework. Before
You're giving me homework.
I know, I get you. But anyways,
I'm joking.
it's one of my favorite movies, in the sense that it sort of like, here's a guy on the bridge, and he said, you know what, I've screwed up everything in my life. I've screwed up everything in my life. That's the lens that he's looking through.
Mhm.
And he goes and jumps, and Clarence, who's trying to earn his angel wings, has been assigned to save him. And then what Clarence does is he goes through his life as if he never existed. And he
Mm.
gets to see that, you know if you weren't there, your brother would have drowned when you were kids. If you weren't there, that would not have happened. If you weren't there. And we miss that in our journey, right? And there's another book I recommend, is Joseph Campbell's The Journey of a Thousand Faces, or and he talks about, we're all on a hero's journey.
Mhm.
We just don't think of it that way, right? But all the things that are going on, and all the other things, if we weren't there, you know like, we you need to be here, you need to keep showing up.
Well, if you weren't there, your children wouldn't be there. That's
Well,
all,
totally, like,
right?
so many things. They wouldn't be
Well,
shaving me,
you
kind
know,
of
it will make quite a difference, right? That's when you think about it that way, just that one thing,
one
right?
thing.
If you weren't there, your
Yeah.
children wouldn't be there, right?
And I love the analogy of dropping a pebble into a pond, right? Like, if you drop a pebble into a calm ocean, right, you have no idea how far your outreach is. right? That pebble, that wave keeps going, right? And even though you might not think of it at this moment in time, you you are affecting others. You are enriching the lives of others, and that we're all part of this world for a reason. And when you're hurting, I'm hurting, you know. And yeah, wow.
So much that can be said about all of this.
Oh, I know, and we only have an hour.
I know that's going to be our challenge.
Yes, yes, yes. So we're going to be here again next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're fighting with lights and
Fighting with
cameras.
lights. Yeah, makeup. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe I'll have a little bit more to show.
Yeah. Let's see where that goes, right? How
Yeah,
far along you come.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, no, I appreciate you doing this. This is like I said, this was fly by the seat of our pants, right? I mean, it's like we're doing this. We are okay. It's like,
It's just going to be a little different. You'll have a couple lights in your face like this.
yeah,
No big deal.
yeah, and we've got a few people watching us right now. No insecure thoughts there. Um, but no, I want to acknowledge those that came on. This will be recorded and left on that webpage. If you haven't liked or following the hashtag Wednesday Wellness Show page, please do. We'll have contact information where everything's in development, right? Everything's in development right now. So we'll have some contact information. So if you want to get a hold of Fati or myself, and to ask more questions or if you're curious about coaching, you have Instagram accounts and everything like that, or
I do. It's been tech week for me. I did not figure out where to put all that information. So it's at Fati Light Coaching on Instagram.
okay.
We'll put it on the page. I'm growing in this tech world.
Yeah.
That's my mental block in a sense. But I'm growing. I got this.
Yeah. Yeah. I I threw it into the chat right now anyways. So wherever
Okay.
people are watching, they can see that. Angela says that she appreciates our chat and she's going to practice her listening skills.
Oh, love that. See?
Yeah.
I told you these talks were very valuable to more people than just us.
Oh yeah, we were a bit selfish.
It did feel a little selfish. That's why I was like, it would be worth sharing this. It's not about how confident we feel about it or what anyone's going to think. It's about, I think it's great value.
Yeah. No, and I hope everybody did get something out of this. So let's close. You can hang around after we close the studio, and we can have a quick little chat. Thank you again, everybody. I am going to play that dance music again, and we'll just dance our way out. We'll just kind of see how.
Tried every door, don't know who I'm looking for, and I've made up my mind over and over. I can't be everything you want.